So one of the questions that I get asked a lot is how do you straighten your roof framing so that when you start laying your steel, you don't have that crazy jag that you get at the eave here on the fascia if your sheets are not running square to your building. So the first thing we do is we always check plumb on all of our walls. Most importantly, the 3 walls that are part of the side of roof that we are working on. So with this side, we'll go to this end wall, we'll do this front side wall, and then we'll do this end wall. The other back side wall, I mean, yeah, I want it close, but I'm not really concerned about that right now because it doesn't have anything to do with this side of the roof. Once we get our walls plumb and we know we're good, that's when we take out the string line here. And today it's like not even breezy. It's like a perfect day to be running a string. And what I do is I just set my string on a nail. It is kind of breezy actually right now, but this string line on the 40 feet ain't moving at all. And I'm basically gonna set it so that on both ends, it's just barely kissing. So I'll do the same thing on the far end and get it set up. And then what I've got to do, you can see the building has got a couple ins and outs, and we'll go ahead and set up our chains, and we'll make sure that this front fascia line is straight as this string. And then we'll go to the next step, which is getting the peak square with the overhang on this end wall and the fascia board. So we want that sucker squared in with the eave. That way when we run our sheets and we mark it all out, they're not going to jag. They're going to be in a perfectly straight line. Well, this is probably one of our worst. You can see going that way, if I get over the string line, how the fascia is too far out. So this truss here, it needs to go out. I'm sorry, it's back. So what we do is when we put our square here, you can see the distance between it. That's how much we got to move it, which means this guy here, it needs to come my way to bring that square to the string line. And I think I usually try to go to the middle of the biggest one and I try to push that. So Gorilla Man here, Greg, what are you doing? Huh? Is gonna put that chain, we've already got it here on the truss, and we're gonna bring it to a column below me, and we'll use the binder. And I know some guys have been like, well, why don't you use like one of those ratchet binders? Honestly, they take up more room, they're a little bit more costly, and it doesn't take a whole lot once you figure out what you're doing to put the snap binder on, and you kind of get a feel for how much it moves. So we're just wrapping the chain around the bottom of the column, and then we'll just put tension on that chain with the binder, the snap binder, and that's what's going to move this. Put a wedge on it, Greg. Got about 1/8 of an inch. So once we get really close, we just grab a piece of scrap lumber and kind of wedge the chain to make it even tighter. Okay, so you got a wedge on it? Yep. Okay, why don't you give me just a hair more? Yep. Too much. I like that. Perfect. A little bit of push and pull. The little buildings are honestly, they seem to always be more of a struggle than the big buildings. The big buildings just seem to fall into place. The little buildings, any amount of air seems to show up a lot easier. I don't know why. And we've now got all of our tails out to where we want them. The problem is on 8-foot center trusses, you've always got to be cognizant of your lumber. And sometimes you might put a board up, 2 days later you've had weather on it and it might get a little squirrely on you. And that's okay. Don't worry if in between your truss tails that you've got a little bit of movement on that board, because I'll show you once we start installing the roofing metal how you kind of deal with that and keep a straight fascia line. So now that we have everything straight, we've gone and we've checked this string line to be perfect. We always do the ritual, and that is you take the string line, you leave it fastened on that end, you pull it back super, super tight, then we zing it. Super lame, super childish, super fun, and that's what you got to do. You got to have fun on the job site, because we are roofing. Ah, woo!
Yeah, that was pretty lame.
That was lame. Want to do it again?
No.
Okay, let's go. Fine. So like I said, the next thing that we have to do, besides put a block right here so we can continue this purlin line, we've got this straight. We've got our walls plumb. Now what we have to do is Greg's up there sitting secured and waiting for my tape measure so that we can pull a diagonal measurement from the peak of the roof back down. I've got the dimension here of 21.5 That is from this point to the ridge point. I then measured from here all the way down to this point. That's 17 foot. So I should be able to pull a tape measure from his point to my point. And what was it, Greg? 24, oh, 27.5? Let's just check because it's always worth checking. I know I've showed the Builder's Helper calculator. Well, that is no longer supported by iOS Apple. So now I've got the Construction Master Pro, and I typed in my rise of 21.5, the run of 17 foot. That gives me a diagonal of 27 foot 4.5. All right, let me see if I can fish out this Stanley Fat Max that far. I don't think I'm gonna get it 20 foot, man. You might have to come meet me halfway. All right, that was a bit of a challenge, but the Fat Max, they say that's got like a 12-foot stand out. Well, Greg's about 20 foot away, so that was interesting. Had to play the wind. We got it. Now what we're looking for is 27.4, Greg? Yep. Okay. You're holding me on your point? Yep. Oh my gosh, we're so close. 27.4 and 11/16. So we need to shorten this to 27.4. That means Zach is ready down there to tension the chain on the peak that is right over there, and he's gonna pull the one that goes to that post down there just a little bit more snug. That way we can bring this over. So you're gonna see what's gonna happen here.
Probably just wanna wedge that one. Probably gonna pull too much.
That was a 16th too much, brother. Take it off and throw a wedge on it. Oh yeah, put that back on and snug this guy up over here. Okay, so you can see, I mean, honestly, that's really close, but I'd like to snug that one back up. So as you can see, we've got a little bit of a system that we go through. We always plumb up our walls, we straighten the eave or the side wall, then we get our peak square as perfect as we can, because that is what matters even more than having a straight eave, so that you can reduce the jag on your sheets. Because I get a lot of guys that message me and they say, hey, how do I take care of, like, every time I put a sheet, it like doesn't lap perfectly and it's not straight. That is the biggest thing. You've got to have a square peak on your roof system. By far the most important. If your fascia is not straight, it's gonna look like crap, but your sheets will look good. So always, always, always spend a little time and make sure that that peak is square to the rest of your building. A little bit more. A little bit more. Whoa, yeah, I think I can live with that. 27.4. All right, I think we're ready to roof. How's that end wall look? Okay, so next step after the peak is square, the eave is straight, the corners are plumb. We check our end wall and check it to be straight. We could use a little bit of a pull right on this first post. Usually that's where you have to pull. We don't need much, so I think we might even try to wedge a board on the outside. So now that we've got everything straight, everything is ready for the roof, we've got to think about the next most important thing, and that is the layout. Your steel layout is what's important so that everything works across the roof. Now on this one specifically, if you look right up here, we've got a drop in our roof. So our pitch on this building over here is only 29 foot wide. This is 39 foot wide. So right here, we've got an extension of this peak where this peak goes back down. And we've got to think about where all the ribs lay out so that our gable trim works, that gable trim works, the sidewall flashing that is back on the other side works. All these ribs line up, and then the last gable trim on that end lines up. But we're ready to put our filler strips on. You've seen us do that before. That goes underneath the ribs. That way, you know, it closes up those little gaps. And get this thing, let's get it going here, Greg. Get that fall protection on. Greg, I value you, so good luck, man.
Okay.
Peace be with you. and also with you. Get up there. Come on, let's go.